In this video, we're going to take a look at tables in Word 2016. Use tables whenever you want to divide your text up into a grid format, kind of like we have right here. So whenever you need rows and columns, kind of like in Excel, but without all of the math capabilities, use a table. And this is easy to see that it's a table. And we also down here have stuff that is not quite so easy to see as a table. As a matter of fact, if we do, you can see the dotted line there. But if we go and actually let's go in here, and I was going to do a print preview, but we can also go into our design view here, and I'm sorry, the layout, and we can turn off view grid lines, and there. Now it just looks like ordinary text. So this is a table. It doesn't look like it. You know, you're used to seeing the borders around the edges like we have up here, but this is also a table. So if you want to arrange text on the page like that, use a table and then just hide the grid lines. Now, how do I know this is a table? Well, if I click down here, one thing that always gives a table away is up here in the upper left hand corner is this little plus sign, and it actually might be a four-headed arrow, but it's so small it's kind of hard to tell. If I click up in this table up here, and it doesn't matter where I click, any place in the table, when you do that, this little indicator occurs in the upper left hand corner of the table, and as far as I can tell, that is basically Word's way of letting you know that you have a table. You can also click on it to select it, and you know, if you want to move it someplace else, you can use that to click and drag as well. And I'm going to undo that. Okay. So if you want something to look like this, create a table, and now we're going to take a look at another file, and in that other file we're going to look at a couple of different ways to create tables. So here we have some data that we're going to use to create a table. The finished table is up here, and it's got 4 columns and looks like about 6 rows, and it's a table. It's easy to tell it's a table because we see the grid lines all the way around the borders, and we've got the little plus sign or four-headed arrow up here in the top left corner. Now we've got some data down here that we're going to convert into a table. You can take the text that you already have and convert it into a table, provided that you do a couple of things when you create the text. Now, first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my Home tab, and we're going to take a look at the Show Hide button. And you can see now that there are tab characters down here, and there's a tab separating the column 1 stuff. There's nothing in column 1 up here because I don't need a label. And separating column 2 from column 3 and column 3 from column 4. There are 3 tab characters on each line, and if you have the same number of tab characters on each line, then you can easily tell Word to convert that text into a table. So let's select all 6 rows of the data here. And one thing you need to be careful of when you do this is do not accidentally, you know, grab an extra line above like that. If you do and you try to convert into a table, this line up here is going to get Word confused. And the same thing goes on the bottom. Make sure you don't grab an extra line on the bottom because the same thing will happen. So as long as you have the same number of tab characters on every single line that you select, Word is going to be pretty good about converting that into a table. So select the rows that you want, make sure you've got the right number of tab characters on each line, and then go to your Insert tab up here and go to Table and choose Convert Text to Table. And it should figure out the right number of columns. If it doesn't figure out the right number of columns there, then what that tells you is you do not have the same number of tab characters on every line. You need to go back and look at your data and make sure that you do have the same number of tab characters. We've got a couple of choices here. If you do auto fit to contents, it will make the columns just as wide as they need to be. Most of the time you're probably, at least I use fixed column width, and I'll end up with something that looks like this table up here. And here's the key part down here. It says how do you want to separate the text from one column to the next? And by default it says tab characters. We've got some other choices, but that's the correct one in this case. So let's click on OK, and you will see I have exactly the same table that I had up here. Okay, so that was pretty easy. Now, it doesn't always have to be a tab character. Let's select these 6 lines, again being careful not to get anything above or below. And let's go to our Insert tab and go to Table and convert text to table. Okay, and now it's looks like it's confused. It says 1 column. Well, the reason it says 1 column is because it's separating the text at paragraph marks. Okay, it didn't see any tabs on here. If it sees tabs, it'll select this one. But it didn't see any tabs, so it thinks, well, maybe we just want a table with 6 rows and 1 column. But that is not what we want. We want to tell it that we're using the slash character here instead of the tab character. There's 3 slashes on each line, which give me 4 columns. And that's not normally an option. Tabs and commas are by far the most common delimiters for text. So we have to click on Other here. And it automatically selects the hyphen that's there, and then put a slash there instead. And immediately when you do that, Word now recognizes that we've got the right number of columns, and it puts the number 4 up here. Now if I click on OK, I get the exact same thing that I got the other 2 times. Now there's one other way that you can create a table, and that is if you create the table and then put the data in. So let's go to our Insert tab up here, and let's go to Table, and you get this little grid here where you can basically outline what you want your table to look like. So I know that I want to have 4 columns and I want to have 6 rows. Okay. Now if you want more than, I think this is maybe 10 by 10. If you want more than 10 by 10, actually looks like it's 10 by 8. If you want more than that, you'll have to create something like this and then go in and edit it later. But I just want 4 columns and I want 6 rows. So when it says 4 by 6 table up there, click on OK, and I get the exact same table structure that I had up here. I just don't have the data in it. So if you've already got the data and you've got delimiters, you can convert it into a table. If you don't have the data and you're preparing the table first, then you can just create an empty table like this. And we will look at formatting a table in another